Hello everybody, welcome to Video Game Corner. This is Jay Tos, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what I do. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you different types of NES boards. And if you're going to get into making your own reproductions, this is kind of a step one. You have to learn how to identify the boards. And I'm going to talk about what boards, what each board, how to find out what each board is, and I'm also gonna explain to you what games you would find these in, and what games they're made for. So let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and start with this is called an SLROM. Now, let's see. There it is. The SLROM. There you go. This is what's known as a Mapper 1. It's got a certain... Now, I'll go on about what the mappers mean. It's a type of wiring diagram you use. It has to do with how it's how the chips are designed and how they sit on the boards. I don't want to go into too much of a thing, confuse anybody. Basically, this is a certain type of wiring system you would have to use to convert it, because it has to do with where everything sits in the board and with the factory chips. And then when you use an EPROM later to burn them in, it's got a different, the pins are configured differently. That's basically what that means. So you'd have to use a Mapper 1 wiring. So this is an SL1 ROM. You'd find this in games like Rescue Embassy Mission. That's what I pulled this out of. And the SL1 ROM, the games I've made, I haven't made a whole lot of games. The one that comes to mind is the new Ghostbusters 2 game. I made a reproduction of that using one of these boards, and on that one you would replace this. This is what's called the program chip on the right, and on the left is the character chip. Now, you don't always pull the character chip and the program chip when you do these, but on this one you would pull both if you were making this one. So if you were going to make a new Ghostbusters 2, you'd have to pull both. So there's that one. This is a... I can't see anything. This is a... oh my goodness. I sound like an idiot, don't I? Yes, you do, Jason. This is the SKROM, I believe. Yeah, this is an SKROM. I pulled this out of a Vegas. Yeah, there it is. SKROM. I pulled this out of a Vegas Dreams. Now, there's also SKROMs with a battery in them, and it's different types of games. Like for this SKROM, you could make games like Star Trek V. This came out of a Vegas Dreams. There's also, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but for the SKROMs with the battery, you would make a game. There's a game out there called Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Dragons of Flame. That's what you would make with that. The SKROMs aren't used too much. Now, here's a common board that people use for a lot of games. Use these for the Castlevania games, actually. The Castlevania 1 hacks, called an UNROM. Now, it looks like that. There's also this type here, and one is an 8 and one is a 9, and you can see that the character chips are a little different in the boards. Now, you can get these, you can pull these out of games like Jordan vs. Bird, Commando, Super Glove Ball, I think Pro Wrestling, but I'm not sure, I can't really remember. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I guess I should have written everything down. I'm such a bonehead. Sorry. But this right here, these you would make like Castlevania 1 hacks. That's what I make out of them. There's other games too. I mean, there's so many reproductions, and they all have different types of. And this is what you call a donor board, or a donor cart. You pull them out of games, and we try to use games that nobody wants anymore. Games that aren't that popular, or they're really common if you can, like Super Glove Ball, Jordan versus Bird. They're pretty easy to come by, and that's what I pulled one of these out of those boards. Here is the SNROMs. Now the SNROMs are pretty interesting. You have this one here. This SNROM is missing a battery and all the different parts on the top here. And what it is, the SNROM for this came out of a Spot, the 7-Up Spot game. And what I make out of these is I make the Rockman Exiles. Now Rockman Exile is it's a Mega Man 2 hack. So I'll be showing that later on in the series when I start showing games and different things. And I'm probably going to do some tutorials where I show you how to wire these and make them from beginning to end. But right now I'm just showing you guys how to identify the boards. See, there you go, SNROM. And the best ones that I get out of these are the Spots. Now, you can use this one with the battery, but you tend to find games, they tend to cost more when they're battery games, because what happens is you pull these out of Ultima games. That's a real popular one. NES Open Golf, Greg Norman's Power Golf. You can even use a Legend of Zelda or a Final Fantasy, but I don't like to use those because they're such popular games and they're a little bit harder to find. As far as, it's mostly price, to be honest. I can get the other ones cheaper. Also, Shingen the Ruler, you can pull these out of. And when you do these, you would actually only pull the program chip. Now, I don't really know the details as to why on the character chips. It's a little bit past my expertise. I'm just giving you guys a basic. I don't know everything about these. I do know quite a bit, but there's some of the more technical things I don't know. This right here is a TSROM. There's also the Mapper 4 series. You have the TSROM, the TKROM, the TLROM. I don't have any TLROM boards on hand, but they're all wired the same. And the TLROM, I believe you use, for like a TLROM, you would make like an Adventure Island 4. This is a TSROM. This was actually pulled out of a Bugs Bunny's Birthday Blowout. Now, you would make, with the TSROM, it's also a Super Mario Brothers 2 would be a TSROM. The thing about these, the only difference with these and the TK, this is the TKROM here. The TKROM has a battery. It's a battery setup, but it's not like the SNROM where it's just kind of, you just stick it has just the slot. This actually has an extra chunk of the board in here. And you would make with an, out of a TK-ROM, you pull it out of a Deja Vu, a Shadowgate, Tecmo Basketball. There's also other games, but with this one, you would make, I make Earthbound Zeros out of this, and like I said, there's other games. I'm just telling you guys what I would make out of them. The TSROM, I would make. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't use TSROMs very often. I think you'd make a RoboCop versus Terminator, the prototype. That's one game you would make. So now, Super Mario Brothers 2. Now, look at here, down here. There's a difference underneath the shoe. And what you look at, these are the same game, of course, but what they have different in them is one was made, I believe this one was made earlier. Now the difference with these games is with the boards are different. Now the TSROM, which is the in the regular Super Mario Brothers 2, now you see the pins on the bottom? The one without the little Nintendo logo under his foot has all the pins, and then this one has this little gap in the middle. Now, here's the thing. This is just a regular TSROM, so this they're the same, board configuration. Now, here's the funny thing. This is what you would make a Final Fantasy III out of. Final Fantasy IIIJ, the Nintendo version. Now, the reason why is back here on the 56th pin, which is this one right here. So you see it's so hard to see, I'm sorry. It's 55, then right next would be 56. You have to run a wire over the top, and you'd have to solder it into that little piece of metal to do everything just right. You could do the same thing with this one, but you'd also have to add a piece of metal here, which I've heard guys take sheet metal and glue it in and then sand it. It's a lot of work. Now, here's the thing. There's the Final Fantasy IIIJ uses a battery, and you would actually have to buy a battery and then diodes and resistors and capacitors, and you'd have to wire it all together, and then you'd connect it up to here to the WRAM, and you do this big setup, and it's pretty complicated. Now, the other trick is you could use a TKROM, like I showed you before, which would be this board. You could do a TKROM, but your problem is you're missing that 56th pin. Now, if you put the pin in, then this is actually a little bit better battery-wise. So to make a Final Fantasy III, you could use either this board, which is the Final Fantasy, which is the TSROM with all the pins, and the Mario Brothers 2 without the logo under there is the difference. That's the one you want to get. Or, I don't know if there's other boards. I don't know. I've heard there is, but I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that. And then this one, you can use it. Everything matches up better with the battery setup, except back here. And if you don't do the battery setup right on these, it can drain your battery, and then you end up losing your game. I actually made that mistake when I made my first Final Fantasy III. I ended up doing the battery setup and ended up draining the battery and lost 8 hours of gameplay. So it's kind of like it's a hard reproduction to make. It's not ideal. So anyway, that's just a little quick thing on a little quick information on the boards that are there in the Nintendo games. There's a lot of other boards I didn't talk about because we don't use them all for reproductions. I mean, there's like a Mapper 5, which you get out of games like Gemfire, which are really expensive, and then I can't remember the other two games, but as I go through the tutorials, I'll give you guys more and more information. There's also a board called a SNROM, which I don't have any handy, but I'm going to be getting some. You make games like Maui-Kun and the Goonies 1 game. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to probably do a simple SNROM. It's a pretty basic, you don't have to wire it, or I'll even do there's this Dragon Warrior 1 hack, where you use the Dragon Warrior 1 board, and it's the only board you can use, because I think it's I don't know what the name of the board is, but it's just used for the Dragon Warrior 1 game. And it's basically a hack called Dragoon X Omega, and all you do is, there's no wiring involved, because it's a very simple game. So, I'll do a couple games like that, and I'll show you guys how to do it from beginning to end. I'll show you how to burn it, how to use the software, how to do the different wiring for the different mappers, and I'll go through different sections, and we'll make some games as we go down, and as I make more videos. I'm not going to do them all at once, just a little bit at a time. So, anyway, guys, I will talk to you next time. This is Jason from Video Game Corner, and don't forget to comment and subscribe. Ask me any questions you need. I can also make you guys reproductions for NES if you need some, and I also have a connection to Super Nintendo reproductions if you guys need some for a decent price. Anyway, guys, let me know what you need. Questions, comments, whatever, input. I'm not the best at this, but I do my best. So anyway, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later.